Welcome to the Nerd Party.
They can travel anywhere in time and space.
Off we go into time and space!
So all of time and all of space is sitting out there.
Welcome to Time and Space, one married couple's adventure through the Doctor Who universe. I'm Jessica Nunn.
And I'm her revolutionary companion, Phillip.
Is that a comment on your age?
I think I'm gonna grow a ponytail.
Oh, okay.
Maybe powder a wig.
Oh, all right. I was thinking more sort of hippies revolution, but you do you, boo.
I was gonna throw the tea we have in the front lawn.
Okay. I mean, don't. But okay. You fight the power, baby. So what have we been doing that is Who-like this week?
Well, I haven't done it recently, but I haven't mentioned that I did a couple weeks ago. I was playing the new game, Doctor Who Infinity. I believe that's the name of it. It's on Steam for the PC. And it's all right. It's there's a few adventures, but the first one is the 12th Doctor and Missy. And then it has the 12th Doctor's companions, and they're sort of like, it's a mix of sort of comic book story, and then you go into sort of different games, like gem matching, what you typically play.
Yeah.
So it's all right. I mean, it's not great, but I mean, it's all right. So maybe, it gets different once you get a little bit further. So
we need a Hidden Figures mystery thing, because we like those games.
We do. See, the potential news, I mean, I think it's official, but maybe it's still rumor that the next series will be on Sundays.
Okay.
So
Big Brother will be over by then, so we'll be prepared for it.
Schedule.
Yeah, we will. Or
we just watch it on DVR the next day or something.
I can go out on my own.
Yeah, you could just spin off.
Solo
act.
I'm going solo. Welcome to Time and Space, one single lady's adventure through the Doctor Who.
So you're
universe.
not only going solo, you're also divorcing.
Yeah, I feel like those things are in. Let's be honest. This is the only thing keeping us together at this point.
That's true.
This is the only time during the week we choose to talk to each other, and then it's via
cat.
The cat. Yes. Now, do you get to talk about what you did this morning?
Sure. Well, I'll just mention another podcast that's out there, and that's Doctor Whose Line Is It Anyway? It's a podcast where, if you're not familiar with it, it's basically they will do either a new or classic Who episode, but they will get rid of the dialogue and replace it with their own, based on sort of a popular game from the improv Whose Line Is It Anyway? So it's something you can listen to independently, or you can sort of put on the episode, press mute, and put on this track. And so I
feel like that's the best way to do it.
Yeah, so I participate in a recent episode. I'll talk more about it when it's out, because I don't know how many weeks ahead they do this. So, but do check out that podcast if you're interested. It's a very fun experience. So. And
they apparently do it at 2:00 in the morning.
Well, if you're in East Coast
America,
yes.
Yep. Phillip set his alarm last night and said, "But don't worry, darling, you don't have to get up." As if that were going to be an option. Of course, maybe we should be young and hip and still awake at 2 a.m.
No, we're not.
Just coming in from the party?
No.
The rave?
We did see
the speakeasy.
We did not play it, but we did see an old Doctor Who board game the other day at our board game night that we went to. So it looked pretty old. So I mean, pretty old. Of course, not that old. I'm sure it's 80 or late 70s, but still.
Yeah, maybe we'll play that next time.
Yeah.
Right. So tonight we're going to talk about the Daleks. That's the plan. The Daleks have menaced the Doctor throughout time and space. In this first of our 2-part series, we'll look at their second ever serial appearance, the Dalek Invasion of Earth. This 6-part First Doctor adventure would provide the inspiration for the feature film Daleks Invasion Earth 2150 AD. It also features the first ever departure of a companion, the Doctor's granddaughter, Susan Foreman. We'll dive into this classic story and see why it led to a feature film. Now, I need to start by saying I'm a little concerned about the whole dive-in thing, because it specifically tells you at the beginning of the episode not to, leave dead bodies in the water.
Sure. And I think that's an important public health announcement.
As a general rule.
Right. I mean, you always want to put them in a field or swamp. They're not going to find them there.
Ah, good point. Yes, a bog or a moor.
Yeah.
You want to leave it in a moor, perhaps.
Yeah, they're dependable. Of course, when I was writing the title of the feature film, I had to check it 5 times because it seemed grammatically incorrect. Like, there's no colon, there's not a comma.
Yeah, as I was reading it,
on the poster.
Yeah, as I was reading it, I was like, I'm not sure. Do I pause? Is that still part of the title?
I suppose you're supposed to read Daleks Invasion, Earth 2150 AD, but like there still should be a comma or a colon or something.
Yeah,
but there's not.
Or just an of.
Yeah.
Daleks Invasion of Earth. I mean, is it the original is called the Dalek Invasion of Earth, and the second one's called Daleks Invasion Earth. And did they think they would get away with?
This is completely different.
This is a completely different.
It's Peter
show.
Cushing.
It's Peter Cushing, and there's no of in the title.
That's right.
And that hoodwinked everybody.
It's a completely different article.
Bless.
But that's not what we're going to talk. We'll talk about that next week, and it'll be interesting what we have to say. But so we're
inevitably.
But we're talking about the original one. So again, like I said, it's only the second Dalek experience. So I thought we'd sort of break apart some of the characters because there's a lot to this, I suppose. So first, let's just talk about the first Doctor. How'd you enjoy his role or not role in this story?
Yeah, I think that's part of it, is that he doesn't seem to do a whole heck of a lot. He hums and wipes his nose and hums a lot.
Right.
But, yeah, he is not in any way, shape, or form the catalyst for this.
And it's interesting to compare it, and I don't know, I hesitate to use his characterization or his writing as something for nowadays, because I wouldn't want to diminish the new Doctor that would be upcoming. But it is interesting that the Doctor's not necessarily the main character, sort of ensemble piece.
Very much an ensemble
I don't
piece.
Want to downplay Jodie and whatever, but it is an interesting approach to it.
Yeah, it certainly is. I think that you can get away with serials like this if it's not all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's, the fact that we have seen the first Doctor being the leader makes it palatable to let him take that step back.
Apparently, in real life, he injured himself, or at least fell awkwardly, and he wasn't that old, but I suppose old enough, and so he sort of fell off a ramp of the Dalek ramp or something in the story. And so he was basically took a week off, so he's not in one of the episodes. Can't remember which one it was. I mean, because you really almost don't notice, right?
Did he sprain his ankle? They should put cold water on.
Yes, we learned about the wonders of cold water on any below the shin injury. Yes. But yeah, I mean, it's sort of I would say stereotypical. Of course, he's the first Doctor, so there is no stereotype other than what he's creating. But looking back retroactively, he sort of does the stereotypical last-minute save in the last episode of like, this is how we destroy the Daleks, pressing buttons, wibbly-wobbly, technobabble, boom, done.
Yes. Yeah, but I think that this one was nice because everybody was off doing different things. Mm-hmm. You've got Susan off in one direction. You've got Ian off in another direction.
She was not with a group of boys doing music.
No, that's true. She was not with a British boy band. That is true. That were not anywhere called. Like, I'm not even sure their parents were born when this was aired. No, but she was doing one thing, and Ian was doing another thing, and Barbara was doing another thing, and they sort of intersected. At some point, Ian and the Doctor are together, and Susan and Barbara are together, and then Barbara and Ian are together, and Susan's on her own, or she's with the Doctor. And so that was quite interesting. I don't know that we've really seen one where everybody had their own sort of story.
And I'd have to look it up.
Through.
So I'm probably going to be wrong when I say this. But I feel like, which means it's probably wrong, this is the first 6-part serial. And I'm probably wrong. I think this is like the 10th serial. This is off the top of my head, so I'm probably wrong. The 10th serial of the first Doctor. So, but it does... I was going to say it does feel long. I mean, it doesn't feel uber long. I mean, we sort of piecemeal the way we watched it. But, I'm sure it would feel a movie length if you sat there for all 6 episodes.
Yeah, I mean, it's more than 2.5 hours long.
And it doesn't, I don't know, to me it didn't bog down. I mean, as much, at least with me when I'm watching classic, I sort of, set my brain to that other gear. Like, okay, this is going to be different pacing than current TV. But I don't think there was any this is nothing happening for this one.
I would agree with that. It didn't feel like it got bogged down. It felt like it got possibly over
complicated.
Yeah. They're in London, and then they're out in the West Country, and then they're in London again.
And
it's
in the saucer, the very real looking flying saucer,
incredibly realistic. Yeah, so it felt a little overcomplicated at times. Mm-hmm. But again, to get 3 or 4 different storylines going through it, you kind of needed that.
I felt like they almost sort of spent most of their time world building in a way. And there was almost more I wanted to see. Because this is sort of basically this dystopia Earth, with our occupied Earth, with the Daleks and then with the Robo people, and then the revolutionaries or whatever you want to call them, or the slaves or whatever. So it's an interesting mix of building this world of what happened and how the society now works or doesn't work. So.
Yes, and interesting in the necessity of it being on Earth.
Right.
That you may have been able to get away with less complication if you'd set it on a completely different planet, perhaps. I don't know.
And I thought it was, I don't know, in some ways this story troubles me a little bit. I mean, whatever, I'll get over it. But this is sort of this is established that in whatever year this was, I think the
2150. Keep up. It's,
well, it's
in the title. Oh, sorry. Right. Okay.
But anyway, I'm sure so. The 22nd century or something like that. The Daleks occupy Earth. We didn't go back in time to prevent it. We just stopped it. So
yes, yeah,
sort of
yeah. So is it a fixed point?
Yeah.
And if it's not a fixed point, where the hell is Susan? And how irresponsible was it to leave her there? So, yeah, I thought of that as well, and we'll talk a little bit more about it when we get to Susan's departure, but the idea of what happens next.
And I do always find the First Doctor interesting, not in a bad way, I just think it always makes me amused that, they'll find this area, they'll arrive, they'll find the complication, he's like, well, I'm out of here, guys. And they're like, no, we should stay, grandfather. He's like, nah, not our problem. You just sort of get the young doctor who's really not interested in really helping people at all, to tell you the truth. He's just going to see what else is out there. So
well, and at the end of it, he's like, oh, you guys have a lot of work to do. I'm out.
So that part of his personality remains the same.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Good luck with the cleanup.
Yeah. My work here is done.
Yeah.
But you didn't... Yeah, it is interesting. I have nothing bad to say about the First Doctor, other than he's not often the main character, as we say. So, and he does need assistance. There were a few times though, it's like, man, I feel like he's going to regenerate 2 times during the serial.
Yes,
he got injured pretty bad.
Yeah, he gets hurt. He nearly gets lobotomized. Yeah. All sorts of bad things happen to him here.
So, okay. Well, let's move on to the so-called title main characters, and that is the Daleks. So this is sort of their second appearance for in their real time. What'd you think? Was this considering it's there's either retroactive in your mind or whatever, did you think this is an interesting way to use them, or just for the time an interesting way to use them?
I feel like, and we're going to talk about this also when we're in the TARDIS library, because of the similarities in they're a little bit more fleshed out, excuse the pun. We're so used to just seeing exterminate kind of things, this sort of single-mindedness, whereas these seemed to be less good soldiery in terms of they had a plan. They had a specific, this wasn't just about blowing up the Earth and killing all the people, although that was part of it, but they were also turning them into robo men to help with the heavy labor of the things that they
were more than just men.
Robo people, sorry. Their existence was more complicated than it oftentimes is, I think.
When I was looking at TARDIS.wiki, which, I assume they're correct, but anyway, this is the first time, apparently, that they've ever said exterminate. Apparently they were saying exterminated in the Daleks. I mean, I can't say I paid that close attention. But it was sort of the first time they ever said exterminate. And again, like you said, though, they weren't just, that's not the only word they said. But I guess the thing is, with Classic Who, or at least with these first two appearances, the Daleks and now the Dalek Invasion of Earth, they talk in complete sentences.
Yeah.
It's not just exterminate, mercy, whatever. They just talk in a sentence, we need to do this now, and so I think that it is interesting once they maybe become a trope of themselves, then they sort of... Yeah,
absolutely. And so that was something that I specifically picked up on. Mm-hmm. They are much more, not necessarily three-dimensional, because we don't see a variety of character in them,
right.
But their planning and their individuality to an extent. Whereas in a lot of ways, today's Daleks are good soldiers. Mm-hmm. I mean, even in the episode that we look at in the TARDIS library, he needs orders. He needs somebody calling the shots. And we see that more often than not. And we don't see that with this one.
And I like that the show did pause to think about its own continuity. Because, it could have just said, who cares? It's Daleks, let's not try to explain it. Mm. But they were like, hey, now they have discs on their backs and don't need static electricity anymore. Mm-hmm. Like we said in the first serial. And then I can't remember, I think I want to say that they're like, oh, how can the Daleks be here? And the Doctor's like, no, this is before we've met them. Because I can't remember when the Daleks took place, what year that would have been on Skaro. But anyway, he seemed to say, at least and I could be wrong, that this is before we met them, so that's why they're still here and doing things, I guess. But anyway.
Yeah, but there are 1,000 times that we think the Daleks have been annihilated, and they haven't really.
But I did like that. I mean, they had no reason for the 60 show to care about continuity, but they did.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and it works.
Mm-hmm. And it was interesting that they did look a little different. Of course, it's black and white, but we can tell that they're...
Yeah, that they had, again, we've got Stephen Moffat, right, who talks about when he introduces the Daleks and there are all the different colors, and he's like, that's what they were like in the beginning.
Oh, yeah.
And you can sort of see that. Again, it's in black and white, but, there are different tones to the Daleks, and...
Like this and like this.
Not that kind of tone. Okay. You're an idiot.
But so, yeah. I was doing the research. Apparently they had to find the old models. Like they were in a private collector somewhere. So they're like, can we have them back, please? And then built new ones. And so that's why you had that mix. But I thought that was cool. I mean, you can tell from the tones whether it's an actual color or just a gray. Well, I'm sure it is an actual color because they would just want to do it in gray. That'd be... not very motivational as an actor, I suppose.
Yeah.
So, but anyway.
And it'd be interesting to... I wonder if they've ever tried to Technicolor any of this stuff.
Mm-hmm. Well, I follow Twitter... I don't want to say it's the wrong handle. But anyway, there's one who does colorization. I was showing you one of his today, but it had nothing to do with Doctor Who. I forget what it was that I was showing you. But anyway, he often will do a colorization of different things. So
yeah, that would be interesting.
I'm just blanking on that handle for right now. I don't want to say the wrong name, but yeah. So, but yeah, and it was an interesting thing with the Daleks as occupiers, like they said. That was a Dalek plan. I guess in a semi-critique, I think it took a little while for them to reveal the plan. Like, it's 6 episodes. You can, number 4 would probably be a good time, not 5.5 near the end or 6.
Yeah, and it was... Again, it was kind of an overcomplication. Like they were digging into the earth and they thought that they were trying to get certain things, but it actually turns out that they wanted to drive the earth as you do.
Something with the
and so all of that felt just a little bit... It didn't need to be that complicated.
Right.
Because they weren't going to get away with it anyway. So, whatevs. Mm-hmm. But, yeah.
So sort of... the main characters, in a way, Barbara and Ian, of course, the Doctor's companions. And so, as you said, they sort of had 2 different experiences. But what do you sort of think of Barbara and Ian? I did like how, they're sort of like a tier of the First Doctor companions. So you have Susan at the bottom, of course, who's there to get her ankle twisted and you scream. Barbara is a tier above. She's like, no, I know I'm a woman character in the 1960s, but I'm still going to do stuff. I will scream occasionally, but I can also still hit people over
Apparently,
the head.
every time somebody comes to a door.
Right.
That happened like twice in a row. The door opened and somebody screamed. And I was like, what? Why? Particularly if you're trying to stay hidden, don't do that. But yeah, never mind.
But Barbara was like pushing the and I won't remember any characters' names. Was pushing the professor to, fight, and it was all sort of as the outsider. She's like, oh, I used to live here. Well, I mean, she didn't tell them that, but I know London, and basically we need to fight. And it was that one woman who she spent, Jenny, I think her name was, who she spent a lot of the story with. Who Jenny was sort of cynical and like, oh. Why did that professor kill himself just to test out his grenade and Barbara was like, no, you gotta fight, you have to be revolutionary, and so she was sort of providing the sort of ideological motivation.
Yeah, and also the sensible, she's the one who comes up with the trick to, hey, I've got all their plans, look at this notebook.
Exactly.
She's the more conniving, thinking things through kind of, yes, we're gonna drive this. What was it, a fire truck they were driving?
A lorry, I guess. Some sort of, I forget
some
what it
sort
was.
of lorry, yeah, I can't remember. But, all of those things. She came out pretty plucky.
Yeah, she's like, she's like, oh, there's, Jenny's like, oh, there's Daleks. She's like, yeah, hit the gas. This is what we're doing.
Let's do this. Let's do this. Whereas Ian is more of the...
He's not the strongman per se, but sort of the spy almost. He's sort of
the
James
infiltrating kind of thing. Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see because Ian plays a bit of a buffoon in the first Peter Cushing film that we saw. So it'll be interesting to see how they work that out and how many times he runs into things.
Right. Yeah, because like I said, it was a very complicated. I mean, for like, if we did the summary, like, this is what Barbara did, and this is what Eden did, it'd probably take us like 30 minutes, just all the stuff that they were doing.
But I think that they had individual roles in the piece, and they played them well in a way that I hadn't necessarily, like, I feel like I know more about all of them as characters now, having seen this, because they had that opportunity.
I did feel there was a little bit of sex segregation, because I feel like Ian would only interact with male characters, and Barbara, for the most part, would only interact with female characters. I mean, she did deal with the professor, like when she was with the rebels. I mean, that was mixed gender, but once the story went along, then she was just with her companion.
Yes, her companion, and then they run to somebody's house, and it turns out that is also two women. Yeah, that's a fair point. Yeah, maybe it was just a contrast, considering Susan's over there getting all sorts of desegregated with David.
And I don't know.
Is that right, David?
Yes. And I don't know if there's any reason to think real deep about the story, whether they were just going for a simple aliens invade and, Doctor Who. But, I mean, it does make you think, again, this is post-war, when this is all going on. Most people lived through World War II. And so the concept...
And the Blitz is what you're thinking.
Well, no, I'm actually thinking of, like, France and everything, when you have the occupation and you have some collaborators, like the two women she met. And so the choices people make, whether to fight or not. And, on paper, it's easy to say, like, of course you should fight, like, as as Barbara is saying. But then there's the reality of, well, do I want to live or not? And then, the choices you have to make.
And do I want to live in this completely new world? That even once it's over, once the occupation or whatever is over, if it's ever over, the whole world has changed. And is that a place I want to...
And then even I don't know what the metaphor would be, so I'll just go for what it literally was, and you can think of what the metaphor would be. But when it was the final serial, I think, when you had the one guy who faced his brother, who had been roboized, and so it's brother versus brother, and almost like a civil war or something. But anyway, and so he has to make the decision, and they end up, I think, just killing each other. But he sort of has to deal with that. He's trying to, remember me, it's your brother, and then remember your wife. And
he has been living so hard to find his brother, and then the realization that his brother really ultimately was gone.
Yeah.
And there's no cure, apparently, for being a robobot or whatever.
Yeah. Because the story actually opens with a robo-human just killing themselves, or walking in the water. Which
you're not supposed to do. There's a sign and everything.
It's fairly big.
That and what's the no veto?
No, vetoed. Okay. So throughout this, I mean, if you've seen this, listeners, but if you haven't, throughout this whole serial, because this is all supposed to be sort of dystopia London, but there's these big signs everywhere that say vetoed, and some of them have like an elephant or something. And there's never an explanation for what these signs are supposed to mean. So, again, doing the research. So, apparently, it's an in-joke. When, I guess, the producer... I'm going to get these names wrong. But anyway, I guess when the ideas of how to design a scene, and then the production designers or whoever would put vetoed if they didn't like it. So, that was sort of their talk back to the people who don't let them do what they want to do, I guess. So... But again, it would have been nice if they had come up with some in-story explanation. Yeah. Because it's really everywhere, obnoxiously everywhere, that, like, surely this means something. I'm trying to connect, like, was this when because apparently there was a plague first that the Daleks sent, and then to, weaken up humanity, and then the Daleks invaded. But so I was trying to think of, like, is this how the government reacted, or is this the people? I don't know. It was all very confusing, and in the end, there was no reason.
Yep.
So
sometimes that is the way things work.
It's a little frustrating.
Yep.
All right, so let's talk about the character who this is her last... Well, I was going to say it's our last episode of Doctor Who. That's not actually true, because we'll see her again in the 5 Doctors, and then Dimensions in Time, if you call that an episode, where they...
Yep.
When they go to EastEnders or whatever.
Yep.
Anyway, so Susan Foreman. So other than the medical breakthroughs of water on ankles... What did you think about Susan's performance in this? Her swan song.
She gets more moments than she often has, because she has that love moment, although it is a little bit dramatic.
Right.
But, I think it's interesting because ultimately it was both her choice and the Doctor's choice, I think. Mm-hmm. I think he made the choice because she didn't want to make the choice, but if she had been forced to make the choice, I think she would have made the choice, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
All of that. She wanted to be with this freedom fighter, but she also didn't want to leave her elderly grandfather, and her elderly grandfather said, you need to...
Pushed you out the nest.
But yeah, I'm going to push you out of the nest. You need to... live a normal life, such as it is.
And I thought they did a fairly good job. I mean, we both knew what was going to happen in the end, but I think they planted the seeds of, she sort of muses about early on what it'd be like to live, and David's like, well, maybe you should, or this is where. Or, I know, because she was sort of saying like, well, I'm going to leave. I can't wait to get back to the ship. He's like, look, I live here. I can't leave. Yeah. This is my life. And she's like, oh, I don't want you to come with us. I'm like, no, this is my life. This is how I live. This is how people live. And so she sort of gets converted to the no more adventuring and living in one place and one time and all that.
Yeah, although I do have to say, I question the Doctor's choice of leaving her in a post-dystopian world.
With new possibilities.
But things are not going to be all that easy. And he's like, and David's like, yep, I'm a farmer. I'm going to go watch things grow. And I am not sure that Susan, as the time traveler's granddaughter, is going to be all that excited by sitting around and watching things grow.
Yeah, because it's interesting how she would be in that society. Because, she is kind of, I don't know what would be the right word.
Weak.
Yeah, okay. But she's smart. She just doesn't know how to use it. She obviously knows her history because she's time traveled. She knows math and science. All the fundamentals are in the head. She doesn't know what to do with it a lot of times.
And those are not necessarily things that are useful to a farmer's wife.
Right. And so, but it'd be interesting whether she grows and gets a little bored of hey, I know how to do quantum mechanics and,
I'm going back to the city and
yeah,
gonna have a career, yo.
Exactly. So.
But first of all, I'm looking quite forward to seeing how they deal with this in the movie because, of course, Susan is a young, 10, 11-year-old in the film.
Wonderkind.
Yeah, so can't wait to see the romance that plays out with that one. But also, I'd love to see one of the others, because the doctor says as he's leaving, I'll come back and check on you.
Doctor lies.
No, I understand. But I like the idea of the doctor showing back up. And you can either have him showing back up, if we think that she's still alive, the actress.
Right.
And if she is interested in doing something, coming back later in life and finding out, or completely recasting it and coming back 2 years after that episode, in the year 2152. Or something like that, and Susan having to recognize the regeneration. And also, there's no explanation, like, Susan is a Gallifreyan,
yes.
right?
I mean, presumably, all we get is granddaughter, so we can make our assumptions.
And so, surely there's got to be a whole heck of a lot.
She'd regenerate, theoretically.
Yeah. These are the things I want to know. How is she living a normal life with her 2 heartbeats on Earth?
Which the Doctor's been to Earth many times in the future, of this episode. So theoretically, Susan's rocking and rolling. Theoretically. Yeah.
So that would be an interesting thing to explore, anyway.
Yeah, because it is, I think, as much as, Russell and Steven, as creators, like to play in the Doctor Who continuity and all that stuff, as a character, I can understand, or at least I take it for granted, that the Doctor will leave a companion and be sad but move on. I get it. That's his, soon to be her characteristic. But the granddaughter, I don't know. I think it'd be a little bit different, though.
But also, you say that
he does have a picture of her on his desk,
and you say that, but there's an awful lot of revisiting. Rose, they revisit Rose all the time, and she's in an alternate universe. Clara is different. Amy, he meets a girl one night when she's 10 and shows back up and keeps revisiting even after they've left, so that they continue to have adventures. So I don't think it's necessary. Sarah Jane shows up, for goodness sakes. I don't think it's necessarily written in stone that he walks away from the companion and doesn't return.
But it's just he's never, other than mentions and then the photograph that 12 had in his university, we don't get any sort of I wonder whatever happened to my granddaughter.
Yeah.
And then again, I go back and forth on how much to fill in things and how much just leave them be. But who are her parents? I don't know. I wouldn't want the whole series.
Jenny?
Yeah, I wouldn't hold the whole series to run around that. But a mention or two or something.
It would
you
be
can fill
an
in that gap.
interesting
It's been 50 plus
explore.
years.
Yeah. Yeah.
We don't have to fill in everything. You still want the Doctor to be somewhat of a mystery, but,
Well, and we've met his mother.
Ish, yes,
Ish,
we think.
They
think. Sort of left it where you have to sort of fill in the blank, but it sort of seems presumptive, yes.
And so it would be interesting to see, and I think probably it's a little bit of an inconvenience that he started off with a granddaughter and, what do you do with it, particularly once you go younger. But I think it would be an interesting thing to explore and kind of a fun thing to explore.
Now, so as this is the first departure, so this is the first time she falls in love and gets married, and that's how you get rid of a woman.
Yes. Yes.
She got her MS degree.
MRS degree. Yeah, bless her heart.
So, as far as how companions leave. So.
Yeah. It is the way of the world.
Having seen this, and they come to you in 1960, whatever, this is 4 or 5, and they say, hey, that Dalek movie, that first one was gangbusters. Is this
another one?
Is this a good one to use for the second one?
it is so difficult because I just find it so
You've just lowered your
bizarre.
expectations.
Well, and I
of
just
what to
find it
see.
so bizarre that they go, we're going to make a Doctor Who movie, but rather than write a whole
original.
new thing, an original thought, we're just going to take the ones that are already there and redo them. That is recycling to the nth degree.
Now, the only defense I would say is, remember, the reruns don't exist in this world of 1960s.
Yeah, okay.
So if you missed it, you missed it.
But
So it's new to you.
But still, I just find
Repeats.
it, really a bizarre idea. But that said,
Mhm.
yeah, it was all right.
Yeah.
It was all right.
I mean, we are so low on what we expect for this next week. But anyway,
Yes.
But this would be an interesting world to create with a movie budget. Again, I know it's not Hollywood, so British film budget. Nevertheless, to do a dystopian Earth, to build that world, and again the social constructs. I mean, it would be interesting.
I also find it interesting that both of and is this the only other movie, or are there just two?
Unfortunately, spoiler alert: the second movie did not go well with audiences, and so that was
so
it.
this is the only one. Okay, so it is interesting that they chose two Dalek stories.
Well, I mean, they seem to be the big hit, as they still are, of course.
Yeah,
but
I suppose.
go for what sells.
Yeah, so
Daleks and Doctor Who.
I'm kind of looking for, because there are so many things watching this that I went, how are they gonna pull that off?
They probably won't, darling.
Okay,
Let's be honest.
okay, they're gonna change the ending completely.
We'll see. I mean, I haven't seen it. I don't know.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
So any other final remarks about the Dalek Invasion of Earth?
I got nothing. Let's dive into the library.
All right, into the TARDIS library, we're going to go into the future of nuWho, since we've been talking classic for a while, and we're going to talk about the Ninth Doctor adventure, Dalek. And this was the first appearance of Daleks in nuWho. So since I'll get the title wrong, but I'll try it. I think it's Remembrance of the Daleks. Anyway, since the Seventh Doctor Dalek story that we talked about on a previous show. So this is the first nuWho experience. This first premiered 30 April 2005, and the synopsis from TARDIS.wikia is: the Ninth Doctor and Rose Tyler arrive in 2012, that futuristic year, to answer a distress signal and meet a collector of alien artifacts who has one living specimen. However, the Doctor is horrified to find out that the creature is a member of a race he thought was destroyed, a Dalek.
Dum dum dum.
So I thought it was interesting that in their first appearance, there's just one.
Yes.
And that, I think, does focus it a bit.
I think it might be a budget thing. I imagine they were paying Christopher Eccleston a lot of money. They could not afford more than one Dalek.
This is just the beta.
Yes.
Or the beta, whatever.
The beta, yep.
So what did you think of Dalek?
Yeah, I think that it does a lot.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, we get to see, again, a Dalek with more three-dimensional characteristics. He admits to being in pain. He admits, the sunshine moment.
Again, I'm going to object to your automatic genderizing of a Dalek.
I apologize. That particular Dalek. So yeah, there's the sunshine moment. There's the real moment with Rose, although the Doctor suggests that Rose has
Humanized,
mutated it in a way to make it more human. We also, is this, and you may know the answer or not, is this the first time we hear about the Time War?
Yeah, because that's, okay, I don't know. Because I'm sure he probably has already told Rose that he's the last of the Time Lords. So I'm sure he's probably mentioned. But Rose doesn't know what a Dalek is, at least not on sight anyway.
Yeah.
So.
And we just get this side of the Doctor that, looking back on it now, is shocking. But you can totally understand it. He is the first post-war Doctor. And so that anger and that pain, and Christopher Eccleston does a beautiful job with it, I think. railing at the Dalek and just wanting to kill it, just wanting to kill it, just wanting to kill it. And that's something that in nuWho, obviously, in particular, but also really throughout, the suggestion of just killing it without any sort of compunction at all is a very different perspective of the Doctor. It's not what we've seen, which is why Rose is like, no, we'll help you. The Doctor helps things. That's what he does. And the Doctor's like, nope, I got the big guns.
There was a passing remark in Dalek Invasion where the first Doctor, I think, hit a robo or something, and he said it really quick, like, oh, I only did that because I'm in the defense of others or something. And I was like, well, that was interesting. That was kind of a little like, I don't do violence, but anyway. But yeah, it is. And again, visiting 9 again is so interesting because, with Chris Eccleston and all that he does and all that he is, but it's like he is embodying this role so well. He's not doing too much. He doesn't do too little. He doesn't overact. He doesn't, it is he made this role, obviously. And it's just good stuff.
And again, that rawness of the Time War, particularly, and we can look at it after having seen the 50th anniversary, the War Doctor, all of that angst there. We can see this and say, boy, Christopher Eccleston nailed it. But he didn't have any of that to build on. Everything that's in that moment is all Christopher Eccleston. That is not... He is creating that from nothing. And so that makes it, to me, even more impressive.
And that's where I think it's fascinating, because the story of what the Doctor did during the Time War, they never just be like, sits down and just expositions it straight up, but you know it, and you don't know how you know it, because they just drip drop this stuff. But like, you get that the Doctor destroyed the Time Lords and the Daleks, made a big choice, but he never sits down and just says that. He doesn't tell Rose a story. Over a
pint or chips.
Yeah, but the way they just drip it, and the way he deals with the Dalek being the last of its kind and him being the last of that kind, and the way are they the same, are they the different? It starts with the very first, you would make a good Dalek. And him being, I'm not like you, or I am like you, or how similar or different. And
like I say, again, the rawness and the guilt and the pain that is all still so fresh. And for us, we can extrapolate, again, having seen John Hurt and that beautiful, all of that stuff. But Eccleston didn't have any of it. He didn't have nearly as much knowledge about what he spoke of as we do now, and again had to extrapolate it. It's brilliant.
It would be interesting whether Russell sat down with him and sort of said, okay, this is what or whether the director, I don't know who directed Dalek, how to get that performance to fill in, this is what you should know as the Doctor.
Well, and how much did they know at that point? I mean, we're still, 3 or 4 years away from the 50th?
Yeah, several actually, probably. Yeah.
Because Matt Smith's the Doctor when we do the 50th.
Yeah, I mean, this is 2005.
Something like that.
And the 50th isn't till 2013.
I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And so, how much did they know to be able to sit him down and tell him? I don't know. So,
but yeah, I mean, it's definitely... It's one I kind of remembered, but I feel like with every Ninth Doctor story, I kind of remember it. But when you watch it, there's more than you think than a simple synopsis would be.
Yes, I would agree with that, because I've seen this one.
Because you think it's because the Ninth Doctor, and I don't know, I'm sure whether that Blu-ray will ever come out. It looks quote unquote old compared to other newer nuWho, if I can use that term. But, and so, your brain automatically goes like, oh, well, it's probably not as good or something. But no, it is. It is still as good.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And I think this one, as you say, I've seen it a couple of times. When I realized that's what we were watching, I was like, okay, yeah, all right. But it just sort of blew me away again, which I think is a lovely quality to a television program.
And this is actually a sort of Well, no. I was going to say this is the first time you got the Dalek effects, but now they did that sort of in the classic era as well. So,
is this the only time we ever see a Dalek suctioning someone?
yeah, that
was a little weird.
A little CGI with that suction thing. I can't remember seeing it again. I'm sure we have, but I don't remember would be my answer.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, what are you going to do? Suction me to death?
Oh, no, you are. Oh, God.
Okay. Carry on. Carry on. But yeah, a nice return. And I think it was kind of important. The Daleks can be overwhelming because there are so many of them and they don't have personalities. You know, it's not like so many of the aliens, we know that there's at least one that we've related to in some way. Heck, even the Cybermen, because you've got Danny Pink and Bill. You know, that there are things that we have been able to relate to, and the Daleks, you really don't see that very much. So having this one, and having him admit that he's in pain, again, sorry for the he, and begging to be given orders, because that's what he's not, you know, there's just a lot of interesting nuance that isn't ever particularly followed up. In terms of, we don't then see another fully formed character in a Dalek, but
yeah, because I think it was an interesting thing that the journey takes you on. Because this Dalek is being a Dalek, it kills all these people, and then at the end, it's like, oh, I feel sorry for me. And you're like, no, you just killed a bunch of people, but then you do feel sorry for it for just a little bit, so it's sympathetic enough. But then Rose has the choice of commanding it to basically kill itself or whatever,
which it's begging for her to do.
So it puts her in an odd spot for her. I mean, for us, I'm like, yeah, it's fine. But anyway, but I get where she's coming from, so that it's redeemable, you know, despite its killing a bunch of people. But anyway.
Yeah, well, that's what it was built to do.
Yeah.
You know, I always think about Jessica Rabbit. I was drawn that way. That kind of idea. And can they be redeemable? And I don't know.
I think about Jessica Rabbit too, but different reasons. That's why I married a girl named. Anyway, so
great. I'm glad I could do that for you.
No need to ask what we'll be doing about next week, because we've already told you. So we will be
exploring Peter Cushing.
Yes, the second and last installment of Peter Cushing as Doctor Who. Of course, we'll be doing the Riff Tracks versions because we don't trust ourselves to take this movie seriously. You know, it's probably going to be the best movie ever. And you, spoiler alert, of course, you know who's in the movie other than Peter Cushing.
Peter Cushing?
Bernard Cribbins.
Oh, that is very exciting.
I don't know what role he plays, but...
No, I can get behind that.
So you'll see Granddad in there.
Yay! Bless. Yeah, I think we watched the Riff Tracks because if we weren't watching the Riff Tracks, we would be doing the Riff Tracks, yeah. So. And then we wouldn't pay any attention to the movie because we'd be too busy being very funny, which we normally are.
Exactly. Unlike this podcast. So,
right.
Well, until next week, darling, you're my favorite revolutionary killer robot in all of time and space.
Thanks.
This is BBC Television.